Today I sit with the German ambassador to Nepal, His Excellency, Mr. Udo Eugen Volz. So, Your Excellency, we are so elated and honored to have you here at Vyasa Media Network. So I would like to welcome and congratulate you for your 6 months here in Nepal. And within these 6 months, you've made wonderful, great strides in the technical and financial cooperation agreement, the 41 million euro deal. But before we get into the policies and economic sides of things, I would like for our audience to know you personally. And your background stretches across the globe in all continents. You've been in Cuba, in Libya, Tripoli, Harare, Zimbabwe, and now you're here in South Asia, in Nepal. And those are all different continents and with different contexts. So I'm so curious how you adapt to each new region. Do you start with an analytical approach from your economics background, or is it more about intuition and learning from the culture? I'm sorry, that was a long question, but it'll get better.
First of all, thank you for having me. Really been looking forward to have this meeting and the opportunity to talk to you on various aspects as you have been starting off with. So, let me start with this little tour, let's say, which has been my life and my career. Mm-hmm. Because early on, I started off in Ghana and there was Spain in between and then the ones you named. So it's been quite a long journey, I would say. And you can't plan it really. Because when I was into service, my first intention had been, I had never been to Africa, but I had a real yearning to go to Africa. I don't know why, but I wanted to go to Africa. So at the end of the diplomatic training, they were saying, so who would could name your choices? And I said, just anywhere Africa. And so they sent me. And then everything else was, there are a lot of factors that play a role. One is you ask for certain positions, maybe or countries, but then you get a call and they say, wow, what you ask for is not really what we have available for you, but wouldn't you want to go to, And then I was wondering, is it something I would like to do? And usually I said yes, but the number of postings, but just I hadn't even had time to ask for new postings. Just they called me and said, there's a posting going to be open in Havana, and would you like to go? And I would go home and talk to my wife and say, the thing came up. I never thought about Cuba before, but I think it would be interesting. And then we got into it. And how do you prepare? This is hard to say because you can always prepare on paper and some information. And nowadays you can watch some brief videos and tourist videos and that kind of thing. But in the end, it's the moment you arrive, like the first few days. They're very important, I would say, because it's like other people would say you get off the plane, you smell the kerosene in the airport, and you get out and you see is it going to be humid and hot and sweaty, or is it going to be dry and cold maybe, or it's going to be windy? So especially starting with the climate and the physical conditions gives you something that you don't control also because it's not in your mind in that sense. But it gives you an impression to start off, and then you meet the first people and you see the first places, and then for me it's like I start my little mosaic, so bit by bit you add pieces and you get your own idea. Because I think that's always important, not to be too prepared in that sense, that you have a complete idea how it's meant to be and what it's going to be like. You should have some information, definitely, otherwise you may be going completely wrong. But I think it's very important to create your own image or your own perception of where you have landed this time.
That's very interesting because it's beautiful. Like you building the mosaic. And I understand your favorite place currently in Kathmandu is Bodh.
Yes.
Am I correct?
Yes.
So what still surprises you, even after all these regions? What still surprises you about the cultures and people you meet? And has anything in Nepal particularly stood out?
Despite that, I go to my office wherever I am. I go to the embassy, or back home in Germany, I go to the ministry, and you have a certain setting that you use. The moment you go out, of course, it's a new place. And in the end, it's a lot about the people you meet. Of course, it's nice to know about landscapes and places to go, restaurants, things. But usually it's very much defined and puts an impression on you by the people you meet, And here I would say that, because now I changed continents, it's my first time in Asia, and I've never been to Asia. I never traveled here, nothing, nothing of that kind. So what struck me here really is the routine of people is in the mornings going to the puja, and to the early morning ritual, which is for most people, not for everybody maybe, but for most people still very traditional and brought down through generations, And this is quite beautiful to see, especially it's a bit of a contrast if you look at Central Europe or Germany. The sense of being religious has been very much reduced. People have become annoyed with the institutions of churches, maybe less with the belief, but the institutions. And when you go out and you go to different places and countries and you see that there are different rituals, rituals are a very important thing to look at also in your own life. And you see, and I come here and I see there's still quite a lot of ritual going on, compared to other places where modern life has taken over and everybody's running around and with coffee in the morning in the metro or in the taxi. So here, I think this is really something special about Nepal. This kind of energy of, especially this early morning thing, which I like a lot to see.
I hadn't thought of it that way. And I'm assuming that's why you like Bodha. Like, what is it about Bodha that really draws you into it?
I mean, Bodha, it's the whole setting. I mean, it's the stupa, but it's also the circle around it and the buildings. And I realized how many coffee shops there are, having learned that coffee has only been on the market for 20 years in Nepal, really, as an own tradition. And it's like 50 meters away from the main road, and you just enter a very quiet, very serene place. Maybe I'm also fortunate that I wasn't there with huge numbers of people there being there, but it was always busy. But it has something really, serene and relaxed, calm, and you can go at your own pace, and it's a good place to be.
For sure. It's like, it is 50 meters right from the main road, and it's from this chaos to, from all this serene beauty. And so the next thing that I would want to move on to is I kind of have a little surprise for you. I have a short video from a friend, and she'll be saying hello in her native language. And then she'll ask you a question. So maybe you can guess where she's from and then answer her question.
Okay, I'll do my best.
Okay. I think this might be easy considering your postings before.
Moroi makadini jenyu, dinotenda jikuru ningoya makatibao, zitarangu nonzarutendo mavunga, and it is an honor to meet you, Your Excellency. So,
were you able to identify where she's from?
It should be Zimbabwe.
She is. She's from Zimbabwe. Currently, she's in Dallas, but she's one of my best friends. And
amazing.
Yeah, it was amazing. Like, she's from Zimbabwe, and you had your previous posting, and now you're here. I guess it's our energy that brought you here. But let's go to her question.
As we begin this conversation, I wanted to briefly acknowledge the meaningful parallels between Zimbabwe and Nepal, two nations shaped by youthful populations who are navigating complex social, economic, and technological transitions. Despite operating in different regional contexts, both countries face remarkably similar questions about how to unlock and elevate the full potential of their young people. With that in mind, Your Excellency, I would like to ask, in your view, what do international actors most commonly misunderstand or underestimate about the depth, resilience, and capacity of youth in countries such as Zimbabwe and Nepal? Furthermore, what strategic steps can young people in these contexts take to position themselves more visibly, build credibility, and intentionally create opportunities that allow their full potential to be fully recognized both locally and globally?
So, the question was quite long.
You copied her, or she copied you. I'm not sure. But I think I got the main idea behind it. And I mean, first of all, thank you for coming online or sending this question in and surprising me with this personality also. I would fully agree that these two countries belong to the countries that have a huge young generation. Mm-hmm. And in both cases, they don't all see a good way forward in how to make it in their lives, how to make progress, how to move forward, how to seize opportunities. If they can't see the opportunities, how are they going to go about it? So it's a matter of fact also, we may say, unfortunately, in both cases, people tend to go abroad and look for opportunities beyond their own country's borders. In neighboring countries, also in both cases, sometimes in the English-speaking world for Zimbabweans, because this is where they can relate to also. And then the question is, for those left behind, they benefit. I mean, you notice in Nepal, same thing in Zimbabwe. I think the percentage of remittances of GDP is lower in Zimbabwe, but it's still very significant. It's huge amounts that are being sent home. And you could see that families, there's one person in Zimbabwe, let's say a sister is in South Africa, another one is in Europe, and they would always somehow connect and shift the money between them to make ends meet for everyone in this group and so on. Similar here in Nepal, I think many people felt they had to leave and find opportunities. So what can be done? What I usually say to young people is, either in Zimbabwe or here, is I think you have to connect. I know that everybody is connected with social media and you follow certain trends and messages. But sometimes I think the young generation or the young people forget how many you are. How many are you? You mean look at numbers. You may not all be friends and all be on the same line, but just be aware how many you are, and that you are the ones who are meant to move the country forward in a way. Now this sounds a bit like you have to do it. There's always a difference between where society is meant to go and what it takes to move a society to a new place, let's say, and what to decide individually. There's usually, in many questions, there's a conflict between what would be good for society and what I feel would be good for me, and it may not coincide. This is like leaving the country. Maybe it's not the best choice for the country, but it's fully understandable that people do it. So I think it's important that people who made it abroad come home at certain stage. And they do. Not all of them, still a minority, I think, in most cases. But I met somebody also in Zimbabwe who had been abroad for more than 20 years. And I only met him once, really. We had a conversation. And I said, so why are you coming back now? And he said, I had my thing. I could what I wanted to do. I could learn what I wanted to learn. But now I feel I want to go back and work with those who are not going to leave, either because they can't, they don't want to, but I want to share my experiences and be like a mentor for those who are here. And this is my contribution, And this is very encouraging and deserves all the respect, that somebody says, okay, I've had my, and many people want to go home to their countries, even us diplomats, we travel around the world, but still, for many of us, it's nice to be home. So I think this, what you call this kind of circular migration, I think would be an ideal case for many people. You go, you get your experience, you earn money, you help your family, you start your own family maybe, and then there's an opportunity or a willingness to come home and share. I mean, materially, but also ideas. And you become part of the community you may find still the most suitable for yourself being at home. Yeah,
that's a very sweet message. And I'm sorry that you're missing home. So as we are talking about young people moving globally and the rate of return for our citizens and young demography, it's important. Obviously, I think the question of the Gen Z protest obviously falls naturally into this conversation. I'm curious to hear your perspectives, because I understand you were in Berlin at the time of the Gen Z protests for a conference. And when you were in Berlin, especially from that city that's been transformed by youth demanding change, and now looking into Nepal currently with the situation, what was going through your mind?
I'd been here for 1 month, basically, before I went to Berlin for the conference, as you mentioned. And then you suddenly get the news. I got the news. I saw photos, videos, and I was very surprised, to be honest. I know that hardly any country, also Nepal, hasn't had a very completely peaceful history. There have been protests and there has been a kind of civil war in Nepal. But still, it was such a explosion in that sense. And everything went so quickly, you know. And that made it very particular for me, you know, because it was less than a week and so many things changed. You know, you had the protests, you had the riots, you had the army coming in, you had the demand for interim government, and yes, it happened. It was established, and it was agreed that elections are going to happen within the few months that are meant to be there. And it was just like so fast, you know. This, I think, there have been other events in recent years in countries where youth protest happened, and it sometimes almost put a city or a country on fire, kind of. Yeah. But it never turned so quickly back to like at least calm situation. Of course, people were still, I think, emotional and you know, upset inside and trying to digest what had happened. But at least the outside events were very brief in that sense, you know. And I would say this was very surprising, because I was back in Berlin. I talked to my colleagues who were in charge of Nepal and were saying, wow, what's going to happen? You know, what's happening to my colleagues in the embassy? You know, are they safe? What's happening with tourists? And my colleagues were handling it very, very well. You know, very consciously dealing with who was on shift and who was doing what and who was staying home, and then taking care of tourists also. German tourists. I mean, they're not the most numerous, but they were in the country, and they would call in and say, listen, this is where I am, I need your assistance, and so on. And then I think my colleagues handled it very well. But also, I realized that the tourism industry was very conscious of, and they did everything to offer assistance to tourists, which was very well, appreciated, because it wasn't the most natural thing to happen, you know. I know there were phone numbers were sent out if you have an issue to make to the airport, you know, once it opens again, that you want to go out, call this number, we're going to help you. And it was real, you know. Right. And this was the other part. So, like after 3 days, people were trying just to fix whatever they could to get the things back to, maybe not that's normal, but yeah, back to normal maybe, and help those they see who might have an issue, you know. And that was quite special. And now I would say there's a fair opportunity that what happened in September will not be forgotten. You know, it will become part of the future of the country.
So you were talking about the elections and about like how we're going to have the elections this coming March. And I understand you guys had your recent election this February. And one thing Germany does distinctively well is coalition politics, and the way that the Bundestag is it's designed to be led by a coalition government. And Nepal also runs on coalition governments, but the dynamics are very different. What makes coalition building work in Germany's case, right? And what do you think is transferable and other countries can learn from it?
Okay.
Yeah.
Since basically after the Second World War, when Germany was being rebuilt, it was always depending on coalitions. At the time, there were only 3 parties in parliament. 2 major parties, Social Democrats and the Conservatives, CDU, and then the Liberal Party, which always has been a smaller party. So for a long time, it was always one of the heavyweights, let's say, plus a small party forming government. That means in our new democracy after 1945, or respectively 49 with the new constitution, it was a part of politics that you had to compromise, you know, because you could hope maybe, but usually couldn't expect to run government with only one party. So you had to learn how to deal with a partner, and how would a small partner deal with the bigger partner, you know, how much could he risk, and, you know, psychologically also, psychologically, politically, if you're the strong one. So, and this went on for a few decades, and only with the 80s, it started with new parties joining parliament. In the 80s was in Europe and Germany, the environmental protection movement, and the Green Party entered politics also at the national level. And then after unification, there was a party like of the origin of East Germany, who now are called the Left Party, the leftist, came to parliament. So suddenly there were more options.
Right.
And since 2005 now, basically, we have had also coalitions of the formerly two big parties, because they haven't been that big anymore, because they don't dominate parliament in the same way as they did before, because of having more parties. So since then, we've always had like big parties forming a coalition, with one exception only, I think. And then the one that was in power till end of 24, then the elections, was for the first time a three-party coalition.
Oh.
And everybody said, oh, that's going to be difficult. It was for the Social Democrats, the Green Party, and the Liberals. So also from their political direction, quite diverse. And this is why after some time it got quite difficult for them to manage. And this is why in the end they called for early elections in February. So what is the issue? I think it's a lot to do with experience, because you know that you have these compromises are not the end of the world. I mean, you have to be able to compromise, and at the same time have your red lines to be made clear, but also not artificially. That you are serious about that, I would say. And this has become maybe a bit more difficult because now the spectrum of parties has widened a lot. What used to be basically three mainstream parties, kind of, which had a lot in common, now has become a much, there are more extremes now to the right and left. We have one right-wing party that has been writing quite a lot on anti-immigration and
the AfD.
AfD being more nationalist and having a different agenda. And this is also, it used to be for decades that foreign policy, there wasn't really discussions in parliament because those three parties I mentioned, they basically agreed what German foreign policy should pursue. This was set. It is still kind of set, but if now other parties came in, like when the Green Party came in, they would have a different approach. They would like to see more climate foreign policy, so to speak, climate-driven. And now, at the moment, it's again a coalition of the two big parties, the Conservative Social Democrats. And for them, they feel like they really want to go for reform and deliver, because otherwise they have to be afraid that the extremes will grow. And this is what one of the aim is, that they know there is need for reform in many areas. Germany hasn't been doing so well economically. People expect something like to move forward, less bureaucracy, more action, kind of thing.
Yeah.
So this is a bit of it's quite a challenge for a government to be under this pressure to say, okay, of course you want to deliver, but you have to, because otherwise you play into the hands of people you don't want to see in power.
You described a very coalition politics or coalition parties is a bit quite scary. But what's like on the flip side? What can we, as we're going to be going through our elections, hope? What's the beauty of coalition, a coalition government, and what can Nepal actually take from the pros of coalition building for a positive?
I think the pro is that you have had a much bigger number of voters. I mean, because the one party hasn't been able to get a majority. And if you sometimes it's also useful to see that other ideas are also relevant and important, or even equally important as your own. I think you get a bit more relaxed maybe about your own, maybe not your aspirations, but what sometimes happens. I know what is right. I know what needs to be done, and I know, or we know what is the right thing to do, and there's no alternative. And then you talk to a potential partner for a coalition, and maybe you realize, okay, maybe this is not 100% always on my side, and maybe you become a bit more realistic, and also I would say a bit more relaxed not about the ambition maybe and where you want to go, what you want to achieve, but what is a good way to make it, and you take in other aspects that you may have otherwise left outside, and sometimes a combination works better and is more palatable to parts of the population, then this one-sided thing might be.
Yeah. Do you think coalition parties and governments is like suitable for? Because I understand Germany, after their unification, it's designed to be a coalition government. But for Nepal, it's kind of it's not new. Well, but there's new parties that are rising, right? So we should be. Do you think we should be optimistic, or we should be wary and like kind of think things through without getting too political? What do you think?
I think it's usually helpful to be optimistic without being blind. And if it's a fact that you are not a party that has one overall majority, the only way is a coalition.
Yeah.
And then again, as I said, like in Germany now, it depends on the spectrum. If you feel you want to be in government, you feel that you have a mandate by part of the population to be in government, then who are your potential partners? Are all the others in parliament maybe a partner because you feel that they are within a range that you find reasonable and good for your country in overall terms? It's like sometimes a country needs a set of priority or has a set of priorities, or people have it. And if all the parties gather around these, then it's only to discuss how to get there and how to implement it. If you want to do ABC, but you have different ways to get there, it's maybe easier. Then you can maybe choose between your partners. If you have a number of parties in parliament and you feel that at least there are one or two or three you don't agree with in their main direction they want to go. If you don't have what I would call now a national agenda, that you have agreed between parties, this is what the country needs and this is what the people ask for and we want to deliver it. And now we have to find out who will find a majority to get together. I think it's a different situation that you are in. If you have a number of parties you could choose or you could feel okay with to form a coalition, or if you feel no, these are all people I wouldn't want to work with because their agenda is so different from mine, then you might say no, before I work with any of these, I rather go into a position and going to be overlook the government policy and maybe next time it's going to be better. So it depends a lot on who's in parliament and do the parties have a clear agenda that you basically, or in the most important parts, can subscribe to, and you're just going to discuss how to get there.
Right. Now, I wanted to, before we dive into economics, I kind of want to ask you one last question about the recent political elections in Germany in last February. In Germany, they had a turnout of 82.5% of youth demography, and that's the highest since the German reunification. And without commenting on Nepali politics directly, Nepal's had this pattern where young people mobilize around movements, right? Like the Gen Z protest and before that, during the Civil War, but then struggle to translate that energy into electoral participation, right? So how do you think we could bridge that, or how does Germany bridge that?
I think we had an overall high participation in the elections in February, and especially among the young people. I think it has to do with a certain type of polarization. As I said, the extremes have become stronger, so you have this wider range of opinions and party agendas. And I guess that younger people felt challenged to say, oh, no, we really have a major maybe decision to take, where the country is going to go. If you have been in a country where for years things have been like, let's say, mainstream, going one direction, people may feel, okay, this is going where it's going to go, where it's been going always, and if I vote or not, it doesn't matter that much, so I prefer to stay home or go for a walk and not to vote because it doesn't have much of an impact, Then if you see there are suddenly options which are much more extreme, go turn right or left, not go straight on more or less, then you may say, oh, no, I really would like to see not these people be supported. So this may activate people to say, I go and vote, if you feel that something is at risk this time, or you want to make a point. And I think this was the case in the last elections in Germany. And here I could imagine, what I've been reading in newspapers about when they were talking to young people after September saying, has anything changed for you? And people were saying, yes, I suddenly have the feeling that I have a voice. I can be heard and I can make myself heard. And the young generation, how should I say, is important. We're meant to be heard. And this is why people said, no, now this time I'm going to vote, or I will register to vote, I will do what it takes to vote, because this time I feel it matters and I want to cast my vote.
Yeah.
So this is, I think, the circumstances that sometimes then motivate people who otherwise would say, no, it's been like it's always been, and it doesn't really matter if I go or not.
So, yeah, I'm very curious to see how the whole election is going to take place, and hopefully we're on. It's all uphill from here. Now we're going to segue more into the economics of Nepal and Germany's collaboration. And I understand there was a technical and financial cooperation agreement worth 41 million euros. And I mentioned this earlier as well, during a donor fatigue climate, right, in this world. And this year also marks the 68th year of diplomatic relations between our countries. And if we look into the investments, it's 12 million euros into agriculture, into the GRAPE program, Green Resilient Agricultural Sectoral Economic Development Program, very well named. And then 20 million into the power distribution strengthening program in Pokhara, Butwal, and Bharatpur. And then we have the 1.5 million for quality health infrastructure. And if we look into all the similarities, these aren't just like quick fixes. They're meant to establish roots and building systems. So what's driving this philosophy of building systems and institution over just delivering aid?
Thank you. Thank you for this question, because it's one of the most important areas that we work in as Germany in Nepal, and as for the embassy as well. So development cooperation is the biggest area of cooperation between our two countries, and it goes back a long time. One of our implementing agencies, which is GIZ, they celebrated just this last year 50 years in Zimbabwe. Our financial implementing agency, KfW, has been here for now almost 63 years. So, and then we have another one which is more into standardization. A very highly specified institution has been here already also for 17 years. So for Germany, development cooperation, it was always meant to be a long-term investment. So when it started off after relations 60s, 70s. I would like to give an example which is very well known, I think, for many people, but not for everyone, because it shows how things sometimes grow out of a little thing. Germany decided to renovate a small historical building for the coronation of the king at the time in the 70s. This was the 70s. That's how it was. You made a little gift, and you said, okay, I'm going to renovate this. That was in the early 1970s. And then it was another building, because the earthquake from 1934 was still visible in Bhaktapur at the time. It hadn't been rebuilt, this old city, the temples and all that. Yeah. And then you would start with another temple and one more temple. And what happened, it became a project of almost like 15 years. And it went into infrastructure, water supplies, sewage. So it became a complete development project in the end. And probably it's been one of the biggest development projects Germany has ever done worldwide, from these dimensions it had. And it culminated kind of politically in a visit of Chancellor Kohl in 1987, who came to see Nepal and Bhaktapur. And, so I think for many people, especially in Bhaktapur, they are still aware of this contribution.
Yeah.
But this is just to symbolize, for me, this idea of we get started and see what needs to be done, what can we do, and then it expanded in that case. And it's a bit similar with the three areas that we have been working on, let's say, beyond Bhaktapur, after Bhaktapur, which is energy, health, and sustainable economic development. And in energy, it's also been like an organic development, because it started off with producing hydropower, because Nepal is so rich in these resources to produce it. So that was the first phase, let's say. And the second one was distribution, transmission across the country. Because it's not always close by after production where you have to take electricity. And now we have entered a third phase, which is the proper distribution, let's say, to the consumers, to the households. And we are not the only ones, sure, there are other donors who are involved, but we have been following this, as I said, like this organic development from production now to distribution. And I think this is the idea, that it grows, that you not just come, build a thing for one project for 3-4 years, and then you move out again. If things work, it should continue. And maybe there will come a time when we say, okay, energy, it's kind of mostly done, or you bring in more private sector, local or international, and it's less development cooperation. And then we may look another area, or we will see what happens. But this has been quite, I think, successful. And health also, as a basic need, has received a lot of support over the years. And we did this, like every 2 years, we have first consultations on development cooperation to see what has been happening, how are the programs running that we have, where do we want to go. And then the following year, you meet for the so-called negotiations. This is where you then sign a protocol in the end, and you agree in which areas you're going to work together. And we also then decide, in this case, as the German government, the funds that we're going to put into this. So I was in the good situation in October that the documents were ready and we could sign the agreements. And for us, it was important to say, we are with you, we are your partner. We're partnering with the Nepali people, basically, through the Nepali government. This is the idea, I think. And there was no reason for us to shy away. So we signed the documents. And even in between, before, we had another 10 million. So for 2 years, it adds up to 51 million euros. And then another thing was that in December, then we had the consultations for the next round. And we also said, yeah, that's what we planned for in December, so let's do it. So we worked with the interim government, and we again had meetings and this is more informal because it's just a bit of brainstorming and see where we go. And this was done and it worked well. And so sometime this year, maybe in the second half, we will come to the second step again, negotiations, and then finalize the details. And for us, it's important to continue because there's no reason for us to stop this, under the current circumstances. At the same time, you mentioned donor fatigue. I think it's less the fatigue, but it's changing nature of budgets. And our Ministry of Cooperation has suffered cutbacks in the last 2 years, and they have to find ways how to deal with it and where to put them and where not. So this is happening. This is more, I think donor fatigue, was a factor more in the past, I would say. Now it's about less resources. And this takes us to a very political issue in Europe, that after COVID, we had the Russian invasion in Ukraine, and Europeans found themselves close to a war zone, which they hadn't been for decades and decades. And we had hoped never to be there anymore. And now we understand that we have to spend more on defense and military, and this means that we have to take it from other areas. This is a European phenomenon at the moment, that we have to reorientate ourselves in security policy and European politics.
We're already seeing a shift in our dynamics as we're approaching our graduation to become a developed country from an LDC this November. And we've been a long-term partner, as you've just said, and it feels like we're entering this new chapter. We're witnessing Germany become not just a donor, but a co-investor with this recent investment as well, stands as an example. With that in mind, where do you see the most meaningful potential for future collaboration between Germany and Nepal? And what can we do to position ourselves a reliable and attractive partner, if we aren't already, for German investors and collaborators?
First of all, I would say graduation should be regarded as something it's an achievement. You know, it feels like sometimes I hear people say, yeah, and then we have to do more on our own, less grants, more loans. But in the end, this is what we would like to see, you know, after decades of development cooperation, that the country moves forward, moves up economically, and thus creates more options, more opportunities, more job opportunities also. So I think it's a very good achievement, and this deserves celebration, I would say, in a sense, that this is possible and this is happening. Of course, it means it's a bit like, not like the same, but it's a bit like growing up, you know, you stand more on your own feet now, you know. You could say to the youngsters, okay, you're going out to the world now, it's going to be out of your own pockets in the future, it's going to be a handover period, transition, and then you'll be, you know. So as I said, this should be the aim and the result of development cooperation, that the country in question is getting capacitated and the people are getting capacitated. So this is what I would see in Nepal. Now, as in other countries also that we mentioned before, benefit a lot from remittances. The question is again, will there be more options inside the country? You know? And also, I think graduation means, in a way, as you're saying, that the country could become more attractive for the private sector, and that the private sector sees more opportunities also in the country. So that it goes more in that direction. Again, the government usually has to see, how do I fare compared to others? You know, how much interest can I generate in my country in attracting foreign investment? Because it always sounds like, then somebody comes and brings money, but usually it invokes much more. It also means knowledge transfer, technology. I mean, investment is not only money coming, it's much more that you get with companies investing in your country, coming to your country. Always under the circumstances that you provide for them, to protect your country also against not so good intentions, which may happen at times. But so one has to see what are the conditions in place for investment, and how do I compare to neighbors or countries in a similar position. Now, there is a fairly stable, for example, trade between Germany and Nepal. It's not very high. You know, it's like, okay, but it's also not that easy because we are continents apart, you know. We are not an immediate neighbor, so transport costs play a role.
And we're landlocked.
Yeah, landlocked, yes, but I agree. I won't deny that. But the thing is, you know, my experience is that after COVID, when a lot of businesses also in Germany had suffered great uncertainty and had been fighting with the effects of it and so on, there has been maybe a reduced courage and energy to go into new markets, you know, wherever it may be. Because sometimes when you look onto the world from Europe, you look at Africa because it's our closest neighboring continent, and there's a huge middle class being created and so on. So in order to, let's say, promote and see more trade and more investment between Germany and Nepal, I think it's not the easiest time also. So one shouldn't be unrealistic. You know? But I guess there is potential. And one has to see, of course, how Nepal will deal with graduation and with this changing environment and also expectations, which takes me back to my former point, you know. If Nepalese find it attractive to go home in a certain degree, this will help a lot, you know, because they also bring them, what I mentioned before, knowledge and maybe technology. So I think there's not easy to say this is how you will do it. And I think one of the important aspects of our relations in business is trade fairs. So you always see quite a number of Nepalese business people going to Germany for trade fairs. And I met business people who have been going there for years and years and years, because this is where they find the customers and they find it useful to go to trade fairs. So this is really one of the important ingredients, I would say, that we have trade fairs in Germany where people come and do meet business partners and you start new relations. And that's where we are at the moment, I would say. We have certain things established, the dynamics are rather stable, let's say. It's not that's crazy, let's say, in that sense that it's booming, but we have a very solid basis, you know. And one has to acknowledge that we are not geographic neighbors, you know. So it's not that easy to increase things, and because Germany still, we had been the most successful exporters worldwide, but still our biggest market are our neighbors, is Europe and the European Union, you know. And despite China, the US, and other places, you know, usually immediate neighborhood is the first range of your important trading partners and investors. So it's not that surprising, and we shouldn't be worried that Germany doesn't play the most important role maybe in Nepal's economy. But we should look at, again, this is also part of my work at the embassy, are there opportunities to bring companies together?
There's one thing, I'd love to get your take on Nepal and Germany's bilateral trade. And you were mentioning about the not so crazy booming numbers. It's 70 million total in bilateral trade. And Nepal has a current 10 million euro trade deficit with Germany. And, you know, we have high value goods, and we export not much. It's the classic global north-south pattern. But knowing and being in Nepal for 6 months, which isn't a lot, but as Nepal graduates from an LDC status and looking to redefine its economic partnerships, what kind of high-value sectors do you think Nepal could realistically focus on, not just with trade with Germany, but globally?
That is a question not that easy to answer. What I've seen is, what everybody sees obviously is the energy sector, because there is probably even more potential for renewable production. I mean, beyond hydro, there is solar. There's biomass already to some extent, but especially solar, I think, is still underutilized and could contribute more in the future. Then I hear IT. IT, this is a sector where Nepal has become more prominent recently, and where you have qualified people, and that might increase in the future. And then there's an area you mentioned, CRAPE, which has also to do with green, resilient agriculture. So agriculture, I think, is a topic which can be very interesting, because Nepal, again, like many other countries, has fertile land, but there's an issue about how to use it and how to use agricultural products. And also, who's going to do that? So in many countries, we have it also in parts of Germany, the youth, so the so-called youth, doesn't want to work on the land anymore. You know? They are looking for different opportunities, academic training, a white-collar job, stable thing, being in the office, traveling the world, and so on. So I think, but it's such a basic thing that we do need agriculture, you know, and it's and we have seen also partly in Germany, you have this agricultural industry, like that cover huge areas of land that they work on. But I think agriculture in Nepal should have more potential. And I have come across a few people who are looking at making agriculture also less work intensive and also more attractive in a way, you know. When I was a boy, which is a long time ago, we had a lot of agriculture people farming where I come from in the area. But that meant a 7-day week, you know, because if you had cattle, you had to feed them, you had to milk them, and you couldn't go on holiday, and there was no real break. It was always there, you know. This has changed, you know, and farming has changed, and there is now quite a bit of technology you can use in farming. You have solar panels to feed your water pump and irrigation. You have meteorological data to work on your harvest and all that. So I think part of it might be also to kind of reinvent maybe agriculture and agricultural work and business, and thus make it more attractive to people who at the moment would say, no, agriculture is 20th century, not my business.
Yeah, and we see this happening globally. And both my maternal and paternal grandpas, and I think majority of Nepalese people today, like their grandparents were all farmers, because we're a primarily agrarian-based economy, and 80% of our workforce is in the agriculture business, but we still have, it's such a big issue, and we're importing things like onions and carrots from India and China, and it's just really, really crazy to think of all these. And so I really resonate, and I would appreciate, at the end of the day, it's up to us to what we do with our agricultural sector, and we start using agricultural technology. And yeah, it's amazing. Like in America, like they have just like one farmer, raising like soy crops for like the half the population. So when you say the youth, you say it with such who are they? It's a type of question. What's the reason behind that?
Well, it's very generalizing, because if you were to say the old people, who are the old people and who are the youth? Because it always comes with a certain image that you say, okay, young people nowadays are like this in the majority. These are the trends. They are usually stuck on their mobile phones. Although the old people are also stuck with the phones in the meantime, mostly. But there are certain trends. And this takes me to a point that I would like to mention. Maybe you would also have it on your list. But the issue about our two countries and the complete opposite demographics. If you could see me on the podcast, you would see that I make two triangles, and one, the tip is downwards, and the other one, the tip is upwards. So Germany is an aging society, which is maybe also a bit factual. It has a high average age, so just to make it more friendly. And Nepal has a very low average age, which creates different needs. Germany, also it was quite foreseeable that our country is aging. It has taken politics a bit of time to admit that we do need labor immigration to fill gaps. Because now what we call the boomer generation in Germany, which refers to the generation born between 1950 and 1965 is slowly moving into retirement. And our young generations are much smaller. So that's where we have a gap in our labor markets. And government has understood that we do need organized, so to speak, immigration for people who would like to work, do a training and work in Germany. And Nepal has experienced the opposite. Many people who want to work, too few opportunities. So this is something that has developed over recent years. That are also more Nepalese who want to go to Germany for professional training, to study, to work. And I think this could be part of this beneficial exchange, I would say.
For sure.
What I mentioned before, this circular migration, ideally, which benefits those who come to a country and benefits the country where they are going to work. So this is increasing. There are countries who will always have much bigger numbers, because again, they are culturally closer maybe than Nepal, they are geographically closer. And the bigger the community is that there is in a country, the more magnetic it becomes for others to join them, because there's a basis now in a community. So Germany, again, is not a close neighbor, but we can see that there's more interest by young people to come to Germany.
For sure. So in October 2023, Germany and Nepal signed the Declaration of Skilled Labor Migration. And for young Nepalese who might be listening, who might not know much about this, what opportunities exist in Germany, right? You already mentioned that there is an aging population. If that's okay. That is a political, that is the right term.
It is physical.
Physical. And what kind of support has the embassy been providing to help assess these pathways?
The good thing is that young people nowadays are very agile and very much at ease with social media and online information. So because everything is out there in the internet nowadays. And we don't need to do much advocacy for that, because usually people come to us and they come for the visa or some additional information. But for example, if somebody wants to study in Germany, there's a homepage called Study-in Germany. Yeah. And you find, I looked it up because I really find it good that we offer this.
Yeah.
And you find all kind of aspects that refer to studying in Germany. You know, it provides you information on so many aspects of it. And this is normal, I think, nowadays.
For sure.
And this is why, as I said, young people who are usually cruising the internet, they will find quickly information on that and work it out what it needs for them to get to where they want to get and what it takes. So usually it depends on what you want to do. There's also a small institution that has been created around this idea of skilled labor migration, which helps young people who are looking, for example, for a place to learn a vocation. So they help them to navigate, despite all the knowledge they may have already, to navigate what it takes for the language exams, visa application, and the most important thing, of course, to manage the contact with a potential employer, or that they're going to do the professional training, and accompanies them along this, which is in the benefit of the people who are looking for such an opportunity, but also for the companies who want to make sure that they get a serious candidate and is kind of vetted by this institution. So I think this is important to offer this kind of serious and professional support.
Yeah.
Because in many countries where people look for opportunities abroad, you have agencies that may be helpful or maybe not, or may charge fees that are maybe too high given what they do in the end. So it's important that you have reliable partners in this who offer assistance to those who look for people and those people who look for a job or for an opportunity.
We need to address something that's creating real frustration on the ground, right? And it's the visa processing time. I'm hearing from young Nepalese who've been accepted to German universities, but are waiting 4, 5, 6 months even, and sometimes missing their entire intake, like their semester. The skill migration pathway you just described kind of has some bottlenecks. If someone gets a job offer but has to wait for half a year for the work permit, that delays opportunities and it evaporates. I know this involves German bureaucracy and it's beyond the embassy's control. But from your vantage point, what's actually causing these delays? And is there, what kind of changes is Berlin taking to treat this as the obstacle it has become?
To be honest, I'm in the service now for 35 plus years. And wherever I was posted, except European countries, visa were always an issue. Why? Because usually the demand for appointments is much higher than the offer. And despite increasing the numbers, the demand has always been one step ahead at least. And Nepal, I think there were times it was more balanced, let's say, but in recent years also the demand has been increasing quite a bit for people who apply for visa, either for a short-term stay, which is a so-called Schengen visa, which allows you to stay up to 3 months and then allows you to travel within the Schengen countries without further border controls, or what we call the national visa, which is if you want to stay in Germany for work, for study, for longer term purposes. We are constantly working on optimizing the system and to provide as many appointment slots, let me call it, as possible, but we cannot fulfill the demand. And this is an issue that we face in many countries, that we're just not able to handle it, and we have to accept the fact that we cannot at the same time increase capacities in 100 countries by 50% or so. So what has been happening over the last 2 to 3 years, started with the previous government, that we have started digitalizing also the processes, which means that now for the applications for national visa, everything can be uploaded online and then be dealt with. because there's been one issue I would like to mention, because we recently had to deal with that. We usually published appointment slots online from time to time, and people could then book an appointment. And we had to understand that there are now technical means, let's call it a bot or whatever, that is kind of sitting there like a dog all the time. And the moment we open the door, the dog gets in and gets all the goodies, And it was done, we can't say by whom, but we understood that many people just didn't have a chance because it was all covered automatically, let's say. So this is why we said, to be more fair and more equal, we stopped that kind of online system, not with a lot of enthusiasm, because it means more work, and to register the requests for an appointment and create a waiting list, and then work down the waiting list, just to give all interested people a more fair chance to get a slot, which has taken away a bit of our capacities again to deal with these waiting lists. So I can only say that we are constantly on it, because our interest is to help as many people as we can to present their application and get a chance to get their visa. It does take time, I think, but we are on the way still to improve on that. In the short midterm, I'm afraid the demand will always be beyond immediate offer, let's say. Over time, as you said, it may take time, and it's not a good thing. But unfortunately, we cannot resolve it as easily as we would like to.
Yeah, but I think it's important to also see that there have been real actions being taken to serve this purpose, and the problems are being acknowledged and heard from all the people. Now we're going to kind of shift gears and go into education for a bit. But Germany is globally celebrated for its education system, right? The vocational tracks, the engineering, and it ranks the third country to have the most Nobel laureates. Yeah.
Yeah, that goes back a long time, I'm afraid.
Yeah. But Germany's vocational system is world class. And I understand when I was doing my research, since like 4th grade, the students are all divided into Realschule. And then there is, pardon my German, and then there's the Gymnasium, which is much more educational and academic. And then there's Realschule, which is vocational and technical as well. I think I'm missing one.
Which is like just looking for the proper word in English, like the general, which is like the general basic education, let me call it. Maybe not the right, but this is the minimum you would do as a duty also in education.
Right. With my own background in education, do you think that model could work elsewhere, and especially in Nepal? And I don't know, but like I see a lot of opportunities and avenues for Germany and Nepal to collaborate when it comes to that. So what's your take?
It has been built over more than decades, probably, the whole issue about professional or vocational training. And it's like with other institutions. I mean, they have to be kind of independent, sufficiently resourced to get the staff paid that they won't leave their jobs. So the whole system has to be, fitting somehow the purpose. And this idea, I forgot where it really started off the first time, but this idea to combine, let's say, school education with technical hands-on training also has been very beneficial, and it goes back more than a century. I mean, this has been, there were centuries back ago, you had this association of professions, where people would get together and then they would train youngsters and it would be handed on the profession and all that, So it goes back quite some time.
Yeah.
And this has always been for us very, very natural and normal to have this offer to combine this, that you're not only working with your hands like in the field or on a machine, but that you would also get another next step of let's say, school academic education. And this also helps to develop the people, I think, in a way, you know, because it's a more balanced approach to learn and to increase your capacities in a more, let's say, holistic sense as a person also. And this has been also always a topic in development cooperation in many countries, and it didn't work in all places. After all, it usually worked when we were in there running the schools and the training centers. And then sometimes if we handed over and left, but there were mixed results, let's say. And I know that our Ministry of Development Cooperation has a bit reduced this, because they say if you want to use the model, it's there, you know. You don't, and then maybe there's an interest to kind of copy it and positively in that sense, and or to come to Germany and look at the institutions doing it. So if a country hasn't had any, how should I say, curriculum developed over recent decades, if there's no tradition for it, it's not so easy to institutionalize it. I know that there are some here who have started in Germany. Usually, vocational training, if you want to become a mechanic, let's say, automobile sector, it usually takes like 3 years that you do. And I think here are programs run for 1 year to start with, to see that to start with the curriculum and get people this basic thing. So I'm not an expert in the Nepalese education system to describe it maybe 100%. I think you need certain conditions in place, as I said before. You know, you have to have a certain level when people leave school and want to go into vocational training. And you need companies. I mean, let's say rather formal maybe, and that's formal businesses, because everything else tends to be less formal, and then also the education and the training is going to be less formal. So it also depends on the composition of your private sector. You know, how big is the private sector, or what does the government or state institutions do if they take people in, how to train them. So it's a whole, I would say, approach to education and to training. You know. How much are you prepared to invest for yourself as a person into being trained, because you wouldn't earn much, because you're somebody who's still learning? And how much is a company ready to invest manpower in training these newcomers, so to speak? And in Germany, they know if they do it, usually they will stay with them, they can keep them, and they will become part of their staff, or at least they have them for the 3 years to help some part of the work. So it has become so normal. But nowadays the issue is they don't find enough young people who are prepared to do the vocational training. So I think it really needs probably a close look at the whole educational system. And I have heard, I can't say that in Nepal, like in other countries, like in Germany, parents prefer if their kids are going to university and do an academic career because they are meant to earn more money. Now, this can be reversed sometimes. In Germany now, if I go back to Berlin and I need a handyman, a carpenter or a plumber, it's the start of a nightmare, because it's so difficult to find them, because they have so few people joining the profession. And if you want to renovate a room or whatever, it may take you a few months to get the people to do it if you want to hire them. And I think these people have a good income, so there's no reason for parents to be worried that if their kids go for vocational training, they will suffer. You know. So I think this has been rebalanced a bit, you know, because academics are so important and so interesting. But the question is, how do you run a country? How do you run a city? What professions do you need? Of course, some certain tasks have disappeared because it's been mechanized and you have automation and all that. But there are still many things where you need a professional who uses his hand to do a good job.
Yeah. I think it was like after the AI boom, right? Like everything, there was job cuts in in all sectors. And now it's like plumbers and electricians are placed at like the highest jobs that can't be taken over by AI. Right? Creative destruction is is heading somewhere, right? Like, we don't even know where.
Hard to predict.
I wanted to talk about the ICT sector, but like, I feel like, has that window already ended, or are we still, is it still open?
You tell me. How do you feel about ICT in Nepal? I don't know.
Yeah, it's one of the fastest growing sector in our economy, and it's created over almost 100,000 jobs. The data isn't very accurate because some say 80 and then some say 110. So I'm like kind of averaging out. So like, and I see products that are being launched from Nepal, and it's just like quite amazing. And they compare to any other product in the world, and one of the best products. I'm curious, like, does Germany see Nepal as a potential hub for digital services, like software development, ed tech, fintech? And what would make Germany's companies take these opportunities seriously?
Now you got me at a point where I have to say that Germany is maybe not the leading ICT nation in the world. We do have, of course, a sector which is important and which, as a trend, is growing, but we don't have many, world players in that area, which means that we are also not outsourcing around the globe with German industry in that sector, as far as I can see. I haven't heard since I've been here anything from Germany in ICT sector in this country, maybe in this part of the world. I'm not sure about India, which has, of course, a vast number of people working in that sector.
In everywhere.
Yeah, in everywhere, probably. You're right. So it hasn't really been explored yet. This is something I'm determined to look into. First, to better understand, as you say, what is really going on. I saw a figure also saying that within the recent years, the number of ICT companies jumped from 40 to 400 or so. So there has been a recent kind of boom in Nepal in this. And I hear from other countries that the companies do employ people here to work from them, like remote and coding and whatever it entails. But it hasn't been really yet a topic between Nepal and Germany. But as I said, I'm still new here, but this is an area I would like to have a better understanding and see if there are options that exist and also haven't been recognized yet on the other side of the world. The
ICT sector in Nepal is definitely unexplored. And I was using this product recently, and unbeknownst to me, it was Nepali. And as soon as I figured out it was a Nepalese app, I was like, I have to have this. And I talked and I sat with the people, and it was just a very great conversation. And it's just really inspiring to see that this is being made in Nepal by Nepalese programmers and software developers. And yeah, I think there's an unexplored avenue right there.
How about soccer in Nepal and in Germany? Because to my surprise, when I learned about going to Nepal, I was wondering about sports. And I knew that cricket, of course, in this region is popular, and it's, I guess, still one of the most popular sports in Nepal. And I could see the stadium in December being lit and people flocking there and filling the ranks and everything. It was a big event, I think. But then I heard that soccer is very popular in Nepal. And this, of course, is always very, very good to hear as a German. And I also have my own soccer passion, so to speak. But sometimes we then find out that soccer in a country refers more to the English Premier League or maybe not to the Bundesliga. But I think here we're not faring too badly, because Bundesliga has been, in a way, quite attractive, I think, in recent years, despite of a certain dominance. So just to say it again, yes, I heard that there's a lot of interest in soccer in Nepal. And so would you confirm?
Yeah. It's being flipped. For sure. Like, soccer is super big. We call it football. Yes. We call it the real football. The way that's
good to know.
Yeah.
Thank you.
So yeah, like it's a craze. I think I went to demonstrate how well we take soccer. And I know that there's this certain house and their gate has, and this is in Nepal, right? And this is in Pokhara. I don't know if you've been, but their gate is made up of a Manchester emblem, like huge. It's as big as a car. And yeah, I think there's a lot of good like football spirit.
Yeah.
I am personally not into sports, and maybe that's why I wasn't asking you any sporty questions. But I really love football.
Okay.
And every other sport except like basketball kind of doesn't really make my appeal. But I think I'm guessing it's the same way in Germany.
Yeah, and I see I have to work a bit more on the Bundesliga promotion when everybody's referring to the English Premier League, which is a very strong league, I do say. Yeah, football is still very strong. Also, we haven't been very successful in recent years, but we have a very good track record altogether. And basketball also has come to Germany. I mean, we became world champions, European champions in the last 2 years. So that was only a result, rather, because the young generation, I think, is very much into basketball because of the speed and different perception compared to the classical football, I would say.
Yeah.
But sports, I think sports, when you come back to your entering question, it's always interesting when I go somewhere, which kind of sports are being played in a country. And mostly football is a great game and has a lot of followers and passion in the country.
I think except for like North Americas, I think every other country is super football.
Yeah, but still for me it was a bit of a surprise. I admit that it was so far up in the interest of Nepalese, because I thought it's going to be not at the top. So but still nice to see.
Yeah. I think it was in 2014 where Germany won the World Cup.
Yes.
Right? That was a big day for me because I was not in Germany's favor. No offense, but it was really sad to see. Yeah. I stopped wearing my Brazil jersey after that.
Oh, that was a very special moment. Yeah. I remember that.
Yeah. Question is, like, if you could magically bring anything or any system into Nepal, right, from Germany, and then vice versa, right? Take anything from Nepal or any system from Nepal that you really like and bring that to Germany. What would the exchange be?
What would I bring from Germany to Nepal? I think many people who know Germany would like to bring German autobahns to their countries. I'm not sure how about the Nepalese. I'm not sure what I want to say. But I think because infrastructure in Germany also has suffered in recent years, and we are also in a process of rebuilding infrastructure, train, roads. I mean, the basic ones that you need in logistics. And I think, it would be nice to jump ahead maybe in what is ongoing in Nepal, which is constructing good road connections throughout the country and to the neighboring countries.
Yeah, so the Autobahn in Nepal.
And then from Nepal, that may be funny, probably it is, but I'm still amazed when I walk around a bit and I see the dogs in the street, They are so, at least mostly, and during daytime especially, they're very calm, they're very gentle, and they radiate something very nice, I find. They look at you sometimes, and and I think, they're just friendly. So this kind of atmosphere it creates, together with the people who are there at the same time in the streets or in the little shops and things, where you feel that maybe in this place there's not the rush that you experience in so many other places or so many other hours of the day. So this early morning thing, that's nice to see and to experience, and would maybe in some places also in Germany help people relax a bit before they start the day.
So if we could exchange, you would let go of Germany's Autobahn to give to Nepal, and you could definitely have all our dogs, I'm sure. The last question I would want to ask you is in an interview from early November, you mentioned you hadn't had much time to travel outside the valley. I hope that's changed. And as we wrap up, like, what has working in Nepal taught you, maybe that your previous postings hadn't prepared you for? And what experiences or insights will you carry with you from your time here? I know it's kind of early because you've just been. And
I have to admit, I really haven't traveled outside Kathmandu yet. I've been to Pokhara, that's what I did for a few days.
Oh, really?
Which was good to get that experience and that exposure a bit closer to the mountain ranges, starting with that. What would I take? I think it's really a bit early to say because there's still more to come, and especially because so many people say it's so important to see different parts of Nepal and experience the landscapes and the people and how they manage their lives. So I think it will be, once I have spent more time, part of it will be traveling the country to see the people, the landscapes, also see our projects that we are doing, see the impact, hopefully, that we are having with them. I think this is now going to sound very diplomatic, but it's really like this. Usually, in most countries, as I said in the beginning, the most interesting and the most lasting is the meeting people, And the people I meet in Nepal, I haven't met anywhere else so far, and I won't meet them anywhere else. So I think this is usually the way. It can be very different, but I think this is also going to be very special in Nepal, because meeting people here so far already in the 6 months has been quite inspiring and special. Yes.
Yeah. I'm so sorry to ask this question very early, but maybe we can sit down once you're about to leave with your posting. Hopefully that's not soon. And Nepal is like, I hope you get to travel and see the mountains more. I took, I met one of my friends in China, actually, and we were passing lots of like really large hills. And he was like, oh my God, look at that mountain. And I was like, where? And that was really not intentionally. It was just, but I was, those Manasvi. And then I was like, that's a hill. And then he was like, okay, like you come from a place where Mount Everest is, fine. And then he recently came and visited Nepal. And of course you have to land in Kathmandu. And when he saw all those hills, he was like, oh, such beautiful mountains. And I was like, you still haven't seen anything yet. And then we went to Pokhara, and then Gandruk, and then Chomrung, and we hiked all the way up. And then he was like, whoa, you could just see Annapurna ranges from there, like up close. It was just 5 hours away. And he was immensely like shaken. And I think he hasn't fully recovered from like the beauty of it. And then we came back to Kathmandu. And when he passed by the hills, and it looks lovely because there's a lot of gradients, right, of the hills, and it's beautiful. And I was like, oh, those look really lovely. And he was like, yeah, not as beautiful as those mountains. But at the end of the day, they're just hills. They're not mountains. And then he kind of had this condescending aura of like, oh, I've seen what a true mountain is. So I hope you get that. And I hope you really take that with you from your stay in Nepal. And I would really, really thank you for your time. I think I feel very greedy of it for talking this long, especially right now. But thank you so much. Any final words? Your Excellency?
Yes, I mean, the mountains, of course. Before I came, when I was talking to people who know, I mean, friends, family, whatever, about going to Nepal, it's always those who knew Nepal, it was two things they mentioned, the mountains and the people. And many then went back more for the people than for the mountains. And that also says something, I think, about this country. And of course, in Germany, the highest for us is 3,000. So we far below, And I wouldn't dare to probably climb to 3,000. But I'm really looking forward, to get exposed to those experiences and to see more of the country. And I have heard so much being here because I meet so many people who have done it, who have been out there, and they all tell me which places I should see as soon as possible. So I will try my best to get going as soon as possible. And thank you for the opportunity for this very pleasant conversation, and also gives me a few ideas, I think, to look at afterwards. Yeah. Thanks a lot.
Thank you so much. And I hope you have a lovely term to come, and we cross paths. And yes. I'm looking forward to seeing more news on Nepal and Germany's relations and cooperation. Thank you so much for your time, Your Excellency.
No, I would like to thank you for having me on your podcast. Also, this is my first podcast. So thanks a lot, Manasvi, to offer me this experience and this wonderful conversation.
Thank you so much, Your Excellency, for your whole time, for your energy, and for all the amazing insights. Not just for Nepal, but for globally. And I hope to see your name and the German embassy's name across a lot of cooperation initiatives across Nepal. Thank you.
Thank you.